In this lecture, we are serializing our variables so that we can manipulate them in the inspector. Let's get started. Before we get started, I want to show you a little trick. If you've noticed when we click on play, there's all manner of boxes that pop up on the screen telling us to hold on and doing all sorts of things. We don't need to do that process every single time. We don't need to rebuild and recalculate, etc. whenever we click play. We're going to be clicking play a lot and changing things around. So what we can do is jump up into Edit in our menu system, Edit, and then find Project Settings. Within Project Settings, you want to look for Editor, which is on the left-hand side up near the top, and then scroll down a little bit until we get to Enter Play Mode Settings. And you can see here, when entering play mode, reload domain and scene. We don't need to do that. Instead, we're going to say, do not reload domain or scene. Now, if you find for some reason something's happening, it's not loading properly, and you're like, what's going on here? You might want to go back and try reload scene only or reload domain only, but it should be for our project. We don't have any issues. It's mostly to do with static variables and other nifty things like that we might miss out on if we're not reloading the domain or the scene. So I'm going to select that option, do not reload domain or scene, X out of this box. Now when I click on play, oh, hallelujah, we don't have all those pop-ups on the screen. We can just get straight to play. Now let's do what we came here to do, which is serializing our variables. What is it and why would we do it? Well, let's start with the why. First of all, if we want to make a change to our variable in here, to make it move faster or slower, I need to come back into my script and type, say, 0.02, hit save, back over into Unity, click on play, and you know what, that's still too quick. Let's go back into our code one more time. We'll make it 0.01. Surely that's right. Save that, back over into Unity, wait for it to do all this crazy stuff, and then click on play. And once again, we're going to see it's not quite right. It's like, now it's too slow or too fast. So there's a way we can do that by accessing our variables within the inspector, and that's by serializing our variables. So back over into our code, I'll do this with our Y value, because that's the value that we're messing around with in front of float. I'm going to give myself a space and then start with the open square brackets. They're the brackets that are just next to the P on your keyboard. Don't hit shift or anything. That would be the curly braces. If we wanted the curly braces, we'd hold down shift, the open square brackets, and we'll type in SerializeField. And that has uppercase S and uppercase F. SerializeField. Now when I save this, we can go back into Unity and we can see that when we find the game object that this script is on, dodgy the player, now I look for my mover script and you can see Y value is 0.001. That's the value that we just set up. So back over in here, you can see that's the actual value, which is really cool. What that means back in Unity is I can go in here and change this either by sliding over the name of the variable or just by typing straight in 0.123, there we go, just so you can see it's totally different. Now when I click on play, it's using 0.123. I stop on that, or I could change this to a minus 0.001. Then hit enter, click on play. That's going to slowly go down and sink its way into the ground. Stop on that. An important point here is I've changed the variable within our inspector that's saving it or serializing it, so it's known to Unity what's going on. However, if I go back to my script, you can see it's still positive 0.001. And it's good just to know that despite the fact that I've gone and made this a negative number in here, it hasn't updated my original script, hasn't updated the code in here. So you might get times where you're like, okay, that's in a positive direction. What on earth is going wrong here? And it's because you've changed something within the inspector and it hasn't updated it, or it doesn't update it back into the script. So it's just good to know that. Now, I've got a challenge for you. One part of this is pretty straightforward. The other part, I think you might have to have a little bit of a think about. So make all three of your variables serialized and therefore accessible in the inspector. That's the straightforward bit. And then the tricky bit is while in play mode, make your player run away from the camera and then run back to the camera while you're in play mode. There's a challenge. Pause the video, take that on. I'll see you back here when you're done. Step one is for us to jump into our code, and I'm going to type in open square bracket SerializeField. I just have to type in a couple of letters and then IntelliSense knows what we're doing. Same thing for our Z value or Z value, SerializeField. Save on that. All three of these should now be serialized. When I jump back into Unity and it compiles its scripts and it reloads the domain and it calculates world dominance and it thinks and it ponders. Okay, here we go. Now we've got our X value, Y value, and Z value. That part is done. I can play around with either of these three without having to go back into my code. Very excellent. Now I'll put them all back to 0, 0, 0. Also note, you don't need to put an F in here. It's already known that it's going to be an F. So that's kind of handy. We don't need to play around with the F. What do we need to do? We need to have it run away from the camera. Well, I'm going to do that on the X axis. You could do it on the Z axis if you wanted. That's still away from the camera. Or you could kind of go underneath it and do it on the Y axis, but we want it to go away from us. So I will, on my X value, I will change this to 0.005. Click on play, and now it's going away from the camera. What happens now if I mouse over my X value and I did it too far and I move it down and then up and then down and up? See how I'm changing the values to X value? Or I could just type in a minus in here and then remove the minus and then add the minus. That basically means it's going left on the X axis or it's going right on the X axis. And this is the foundations of what we're doing when we've got a controller or we're controlling our game with a keyboard. Either way, we're saying move to the right, which is adding values on the X, and move to the left, which is removing values on the X. So basically, we've set up a little very, very uncomfortable and difficult to use and not very practical controller, but this is the foundation of it. This is the first step. And in upcoming lectures, we'll be able to do this in a way where you can actually control it using the keyboard. So that's all I wanted to cover in this lecture. Good stuff. I will see you in the next one.